where a school security guard was arrested for making threats against a school today. 20-year-old Roberto Hernandez allegedly told other Progreso ISD security guards that he wanted to blow up Progreso High School and buy a grenade launcher on his first day of school. First day on the job at the school, that is. He was terminated that same day. Court documents say he was furious at school personnel because when he was in high school, several teachers had sent him to a mental hospital, and he, quote, wanted to come back and shoot them after he got out. Investigators found several Google searches for grenade launchers on his phone. He's been charged with making a terroristic threat. His bond was set at $75,000 and has been ordered to stay at least 200 yards away from all schools. Now, this isn't the first time a Valley security guard has ended up in this situation. You might remember back in 2022, a security guard working at Mercedes ISD was accused of making a bomb threat towards the high school. The guard was employed through a security firm, not the school district, but he too was arrested and charged with terroristic threat and false alarm or report.
Police say it happened at 3 Sunday afternoon. Officers assigned to the subway to reduce transit crime witnessed a man skip the turnstile without paying the fare. They follow him and order him to turn around, but police say he refused.
At a certain point on the platform, the male, he mutters the words, I'm going to kill you if you don't stop following me. The officers are able to catch up to him. The male turns around. He confronts the officers. The officers are asking him to take his hands out of his pockets. They become aware that he has a knife in his pocket.
At that point, police say a train pulls into the station and the man with the knife gets on. The officers follow. Again, they order him to come with officers, and again, he refuses.
One officer deploys his taser. The taser was ineffective. The second officer deploys his taser. The taser's ineffective. The male jumps back off of the train onto the platform, and at one point, he's advancing on one of the officers with his knife. The officer stands back, he draws his weapon, and then both officers at this point fire.
The suspect is hit in the abdomen and goes down, but police say one police officer ended up accidentally shooting the other.
A few moments ago, I spoke with Officer May's family. He's in good spirits, and he's expected to make a full recovery.
And in the chaos, officers ended up shooting 2 innocent people. It's unclear how or why that happened.
Each of those victims, everyone, to know that they have my prayers, their family has my prayers.
Those 2 innocent bystanders are both in the hospital tonight. One, a 26-year-old woman with a minor graze wound to the leg. She's going to be okay. But a 49-year-old man was shot in the head. He was severely injured and is in critical condition tonight. The police officer is stable in the hospital. The suspect also in critical condition in the hospital tonight.
The attorney representing a woman who brought this case to light tells First Alert 4 he has the former officer's badge number and says his identity may soon be made public. The FBI is investigating, saying the unnamed officer stole a woman's nude photographs during a traffic stop after taking her phone to look at her insurance card.
Misconduct affects all officers, no matter where it happens.
John Hayden, a former St. Louis City police chief, spent 35 years on the job. Hayden tells First Alert 4 if he was the head of Florissant PD, policy changes would happen ASAP.
There will be no accepting phones for any purpose other than seizing as evidence.
Florissant police under fire as the lawsuit accuses the department of knowing the now fired officer was a, quote, predator.
The chief of police can make a directive immediately. So, a policy may take some review, but at the end of the day, you don't want this kind of thing to happen in the meantime.
According to court documents, Florissant has received complaints about Officer Smith's inappropriate behavior in the past and chose to retain him.
I don't have any words. I want to give him his day.
Wednesday, I spoke with attorney Rick Voitas. A day later, he tells me he's representing more drivers who say they fell victim to an abuse of power behind the badge.
And nobody expects this to happen. Nobody should have to go through this, to suffer this humiliation.
The naked pictures are said to have been sent to a large group of people. Florissant police calling this a kick in the gut for the force.
We can't expect the public to trust us if we do things underhanded or if we do things that are inappropriate or any kind of misconduct.
The ex-Florissant police officer's badge number is said to be on the tickets he gave to a Jane Doe. Her husband is also listed in this lawsuit, and if they win, a jury will decide how much they'll get and receive in damages. St. Louis County Prosecutor's Office is also looking tonight into if criminal charges will be filed.
Good morning and welcome to the Bad Apple Report. It's 7:30 a.m. bright and early right here at home on the range. Thank you so much for being here today, folks. I'm going to admit I've tried to make it just past the first little preamble of this a few times because this cop makes me really mad. He's the reason we do the Bad Apple Report here. I hope you'll leave a comment for him because I feel certain he's going to be watching the Bad Apple Report. Thought it was a trick. Atlanta black man wrongfully jailed for murder after detective hides crucial evidence. Now he's free, but corrupt cop faces zero punishment. Keith Sylvester, a black man from Atlanta, spent more than a year in jail for the murder of his mother and stepfather. Despite video and cell phone evidence proving his innocence that was deliberately withheld by the detective investigating the murders. Now Sylvester is poised to receive $1.5 million settlement following a decision by an appellate court to reverse the conviction. However, it does not appear as if the cop investigating the case, Atlanta Police Detective James Barnett, the biggest loser cop in America. What a dirty bad apple this guy is. He was never disciplined, or there's no evidence that he was ever disciplined for withholding evidence that would have proved Sylvester's that he didn't murder his parents, nor that he set fire to the house after strangling them. This cop's awful. He's terrible. Look at him. He thinks he's stylish. He feels like a detective, you guys. Look at this idiot cop. He's an awful, terrible cop. Stupid idiot. All right. That's Keith there on the left, pictured with his mother, Deborah Hubbard, who was apparently strangled. Wonderful people, beautiful smile. Keith spent 14 months in jail on a false conviction. Amazing. Everybody thought he killed his mom and stepdad, thanks to that dirty cop. You see that? He's going on the cover of the Bad Apple Report. He is. That's right. Hope you're watching. You. Okay. The argument goes, a jury could find that the Detective Barnett either intentionally lied to the state judge or was so reckless with the truth that he misled the state judge into thinking there was probable cause. So reckless with the truth. That's what the appellate court ruling said that reversed the conviction. All right. Atlanta police ended up arresting another black man, Cornelius Muckle, for the murder of Deborah and Harry Hubbard after cell phone records determined his phone was inside their home before they were murdered and their house was set on fire. I wonder when all that stuff came to light. While Keith was in jail, Muckle, who had no connection to the Hubbards, also tried to sell stolen items from the home to a local pawn shop 2 days after the murders. This investigator is awful. He's criminal, in my opinion. But Barnett claimed Sylvester murdered his parents to collect insurance money. However, Sylvester's attorney at the time said he wasn't even listed as a beneficiary. Okay, the insurance policy doesn't name him anywhere. Zach Grinemeyer at the time, that's what Zach Grinemeyer said. And he'd be one of the 6 children and stepchildren that would be beneficiaries of a policy. Okay, Sylvester, who had spent almost 6 months helping detectives in the case, there was your problem, Sylvester. You should have never even spoken to these deviant knuckleheads. They don't care about getting to the truth. These are awful people. These are government thugs. Okay, Sylvester, he spent 6 months helping detectives in the case in the hopes of finding the murderer. He said he was shocked when he ended up arrested. When the detective presented me with a citation and told me I was under arrest for the murder of my parents, I thought it was a trick to try to get more information. Oh man, this is just cruel. What a redundant thought. I was thinking that this was a mistake. They were going to realize something, and I was going to be out pretty soon. I was thinking I was going to get out within a couple of days. Instead, he ended up 14 months behind bars for murder, arson, and insurance fraud charges. On June 2nd, 2018, it was June 2nd, 2018, when Sylvester was visiting his mother and stepfather at their Atlanta home, which is something he did on almost a daily basis. But he left the home around 9 p.m., according to the evidence from the dash camera, cell phone carrier, and the security cameras that recorded at a gambling establishment, according to the ruling. Telephone records also determined that Harry Hubbard called his niece at around 9:30. She told detectives her uncle revealed no signs of distress during the call. So at 3:56 a.m., the Atlanta Fire Department received a call about a house on fire. When they arrived at the scene, they discovered bodies inside with signs of strangulation. Okay, firefighters also determined the fire was set deliberately shortly thereafter. Okay, which would have made it impossible for Sylvester to set it, according to above-mentioned evidence that was never introduced at the trial. An autopsy also determined that the couple was still alive when the fire started because there was ash and soot in the couple's tracheas, indicating they were still breathing when the fire had started. Okay. However, it appears that Barnett was not having much luck finding the real killer, so he focused his efforts on Sylvester. Imagine that, according to the appellate ruling. The majority of Detective Barnett's investigatory work occurred in the first few weeks after the fire. Over the next 4 months, the flow of information slowed. Eventually, Detective Barnett determined that he had gathered as much evidence as he possibly could and decided to seek an arrest warrant charging his sole suspect, Keith Sylvester, son of Deborah. Just a stupid cop is what he is. He was more worried about that goofy-looking fedora, looking like Detective Dildo. Okay, it was almost 6 months after the murder that Barnett arrested Sylvester in December 2018. To his shock, he had been working tirelessly with police to help solve the crime. Here's how Sylvester described the arrest. Okay, I'd been working with the Atlanta police lead investigator, James Barnett. I had been giving him as much information as possible to help him find out exactly what happened or to have possible leads. All I know is he called me on the 28th of December. I was at work, and he was telling me he wanted me to come over in the next day for a final interview. He said at the end of the interview, he just wanted to recap, see if any more additional information. I said, if that's important, I can come in tonight. He said, no, just come in tomorrow. So on that Saturday, I went to police headquarters about 5 o'clock. Then he asked me, so basically he said, if I had any more information for him, and I told him I didn't know anything else. And he said, that's unfortunate for you. And then he charged me with their 2 murders. Oh, Barnett, what an idiot. Barnett spent the next years trying to prove his innocence by writing letters to judges. I think by Barnett, they don't mean Barnett, they mean the victim here. Barnett's the cop. Okay, the Fulton County District Attorney's Office opened an investigation and determined the real murderer was Muckle. However, prosecutors tried to lay the blame on Google for jailing the wrong man, accusing the tech company for taking 9 months to blah, 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 blah. Typical. That's how they determined that Muckle's phone had been inside the Hubbard home shortly after the fire broke out, and they were murdered, according to Live News. That is also how they determined Muckle tried to sell items from the home at the pawn shop. The result of this investigation shows that an assailant who was unnamed in the original police investigation was, in fact, in the house of Deborah and Harry Hubbard 20 minutes before the 911 call was placed. Well, there's your perpetrator. Okay. Well, they got their man. This dirty cop right here traumatized this man, and that's the way they do it. All right. That was a big read, so I guess we're going to have a short report today. Thanks for sticking around, folks.
At this $7 million home in Paradise Valley, the lawsuit says Scottsdale police seized an Apple TV, 2 DVRs, 3 different cars, 28 watches, and $600 in cash. Around that same time, the lawsuit claims police served a search warrant at this home in Tolleson, owned by the same couple. There, they seized 3 Mercedes Sprinter vans and 2 other Mercedes cars, including a high-priced G-Wagon. Valley attorney Benjamin Taylor tells us it's rare to see this many assets taken by police.
When the police department gets a warrant to seize a person's property, it's usually because of a criminal investigation, and it's very rare that you see many assets like this. But in some cases, if there is fraud allegations, if there's tax evasion allegations.
The lawsuit says Arizona law requires seized property to be returned to its owners within 10 days, unless they have been arrested or charged with a crime. Nearly a year later, they claim neither person has been charged with a crime, let alone one that would allow police to seize their property. And they say they haven't been arrested.
And in this case, if there's no criminal indictment or criminal charge, it's very odd that these people haven't received their property back.
And instead of giving the cars back to the couple, the lawsuit says Scottsdale police released the 5 Mercedes vehicles they seized back to Mercedes, even though the couple was up to date on all payments. They have sued Mercedes-Benz as well, but have paused that lawsuit until a judge rules in their case against Scottsdale police.
A lot of people will say it's legal theft by law enforcement because you have law enforcement coming in and seizing your property prior to any sort of investigation or allegation.
They are now asking a Maricopa County judge to rule that their property was seized unlawfully and ask the court to order police to return it.
3 months ago, when Daryl Reynolds' son got locked up at the Whiteville Correctional Facility,
probation violation for substance abuse.
35-year-old Brennan Reynolds wasn't facing the death penalty, but Daryl was worried.
The people that's died in that prison.
That this West Tennessee prison was the place where his son would die too. A fear that seemed to be coming true in August.
I was told that he had swelling on the brain.
When Brennan got violently assaulted and rushed to a hospital trauma unit in Memphis. But Daryl says the prison didn't tell him about the attack for several days. And then for almost a week, Whiteville's warden refused to let him see Brennan or update his medical condition.
The not knowing, even if it's bad news, is worse than not knowing at all.
2 days after WSMV4 Investigates started asking prison officials questions, Daryl got permission to visit his son, who is now unconscious and on a ventilator. And according to Daryl, he still hasn't been told what happened to Brennan behind these prison walls.
What's your fear right now?
That he ain't gonna make it.
Turns out Whiteville is run by Core Civic, a private Brentwood-based company that the Department of Justice is now investigating over its management of Trousdale Turner Correctional Center, the state's largest and most troubled prison.
Deaths are a very common thing at Trousdale.
According to this one-time correctional officer, whose identity we agreed to conceal so she could talk about the things she witnessed working at Trousdale.
Did you see inmates die in that prison?
Yes, I did. At one point, there was a body remains left in the intake cell for more than 3 days.
3 days?
3 days.
A body lay there in the prison?
Yes.
Unattended to?
Unattended. Body fluid starting to leak out.
During her time at Trousdale, that former CO said Core Civic staffed the prison so poorly that guards like her were frequently left alone to supervise more than 300 inmates at a time, saying stopping the flow of drugs, violence, and sexual abuse at Trousdale was next to impossible.
New inmates coming in, they'd be beaten, they'd be raped.
Daryl says Whiteville has a serious guard shortage too.
My son said that they go the entire day that a guard never crosses through the pod.
And he's convinced that's why another inmate was able to beat his son so badly, he's now fighting for his life while he prays Brennan gets better.
He's got a long road to recovery.
Daryl also hopes that the DOJ expands its investigation to include Whiteville and save other prison families the heartache he's now living.
There's somebody else's kid, somebody else's dad, somebody else's brother that's in there that's either going to face the same thing or that is facing the same thing.
And that's the show for today, folks. Thank you so much for being here. You know me, I'm going to whip up another batch of bad apples just for you, and I'll see you right back here tomorrow morning at 7:30 a.m. bright and early. Have a great day.